One person reaching out, offering help, can make a huge difference in your life. On this episode of KEV Talks podcast, episode 30, Keeping the Martial Arts Legit with Rob from McDojoLife, Rob and I dive into that. What got him into martial arts, what got him into calling out fake martial arts and cult-like behaviors from folks, the future of the McDojoLife brand and program and documentary, and we talk about maybe a future where we can all meet up with our various martial arts heroes, products, and everything in a convention, just like the Computer Electronics Show or some other big thing. So thanks for coming to the KEV Talks podcast. Please go to kevtalkspod.com to read more. I also go to BFS Gear. That's Breathe, Frame, Survive. That's the mantra that I created that I thought of is vital in jiu-jitsu, probably in life, probably in your martial art, right? We have to get that breath. We have to make space and frame literally in jiu-jitsu, but maybe in our lives too, from work, from other stressors. And we have to survive. We have to keep showing up, right, and getting after it. So thank you for getting after it by coming to the KEV Talks podcast. Please share this episode with others and subscribe to the podcast. And we'll see you in my talk with Rob. 3, 2, 1. Hey, everybody. Thanks for coming to the KEV Talks podcast, episode 30 with Rob from McDojoLife. Today, we're going to try and keep the martial arts legit like Rob does and learn more about him. Rob, thanks so much for giving me your time, and it's good to connect, man.
Yeah, dude, I love talking shop, so I appreciate you having me on.
Awesome. Well, let's do the kind of standard intro before we get into the super cool stuff or the McDojoLife stuff in particular. But where are you from? Where'd you grow up?
Jacksonville, so Florida, yeah, Duval County. I love it out here, man. Like, I can't think. I've been around. Luckily, fortunately, I've been able to travel quite a bit, and there's no other place I really think I'd love to live other than here.
Gotcha. So you're accustomed to my grandfather lived in Florida in Stewart for a while. My parents actually were in Jacksonville for a little bit. So I guess you're accustomed to the often afternoon storms and rain, and you're like, oh, it's so nice, and now it's raining again.
Yeah, it'll usually rain for like all of 20 minutes, and then it'll rain real hard, and then it'll stop, and then it'll be muggy as hell for hours. So I like it though. I've been to California. California has something similar, but it's not the on the clock 2 o'clock shower.
Right.
But California's got a little bit more of the weather I like, just not a little more of the policies I like.
Yeah. Cool. So living there, from there, grew up, went to school, and is that where you, I guess, got your start in martial arts? And I know a little bit about your background from reading about it. But let's share that with folks listening.
Yeah, so I started martial arts when I was 12. I was born with a cleft lip and palate, and because of that, I had to go through a lot of surgeries as a kid. And one of the things that kind of came from that is being picked on and teased in school. It just kind of happens. It is what it is, right? And one day in school, I got jumped by a group of kids, and they beat me for 5 minutes. The only reason I know it was 5 minutes was because they beat me from the time the first bell rang to the time the next bell rang, which is a 5-minute difference between classes. And then when the second bell rang, they all scattered and they kind of just ran away. But it wasn't because of me. They just left. Probably because they knew they were supposed to be in class and
conditioned to the bell.
Yeah, it'd be easy to find you if you just didn't show up. Right. So 2 teachers stood there and watched the entire thing happen and didn't do anything about it. And so a friend of mine who was late to that class, I was laying there and I was looking down the hall, and I could see him coming down the hall, and he walked over, he picked me up, and he walked me to the nurse's office. He handed me a card for a free trial martial arts class, and he said, "You need this." And I took it and put it in my pocket and moved on with life. That night I went home and I asked my mom if I could do it. The card was for karate classes, a free trial. So I asked my mom, and she said maybe, which is not something my mom says. The next month was my birthday. So I received a box. It was just one gift. And when I opened it up, it was paid in full karate classes. It was 100% for the whole year, paid in full. So nice. My first class was that night on my birthday, and I celebrate every year. So every year on my birthday, I celebrate another year in the martial arts industry.
Do you like break a board to celebrate as part of your celebration, or
no? I never
kata that you practice.
Like, funny enough, the karate that I was in, which is, it's a misconception, which is always fun to talk about though. But The karate that I was in was something called freestyle karate. Well, there are over 200 different versions of karate.
Oh,
So when
wow.
people say karate, it's not karate. Karate is like an umbrella term.
Gotcha.
Like you have Shotokan karate and Ocean Ryu, and you have like a freestyle karate, or you have Kyokushin karate. There are a lot of different versions of karate. So not all karate practices kata. The one that I practiced did not. And then certain karates don't do board breaking. We did not. Our demonstrations were much different. But it was something that was impactful to me. It was that moment in my life was allowing me to join martial arts and then eventually get 2 black belts. And now I'm a purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And I fought internationally for 2 years on a martial arts team called Team Full Circle.
Oh, wow.
And then full contact, 6-0 amateur boxer, 4-2 amateur kickboxer.
Dang.
I've been at this for a long time.
No doubt. What difference? So there's so many. What are, not to go through each one of them because that would be its own multiple series and shows. But what differentiates the style of karate that you practiced from kind of like me? Like people think, oh, you're breaking boards, you're doing katas, kind of as the standard flow. What kind of made yours, and what was the exact style again? I apologize that you
Well,
practiced.
it was freestyle karate.
Freestyle,
And
right? Yep.
so back in the day, the particular art that I practiced was a very blended art. So we
Okay.
had guys from JKD come in and teach us. We had Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guys come in and teach us. We had a lot of different people coming in and out of the door because my instructor was very big on cross training and making sure that you had an open mind to other things other than
Oh,
just what
nice.
he taught. Which I'm fortunate because there's a lot of people who join martial arts and they say, this is the only one. This is all
Right.
you need to know, which is bullshit. Like you should cross train. You should learn more. You should try to bring in other instructors. You should try to develop a wider palette of technique and ideas and thoughts. So I was very fortunate. And really, if you wanted to compare it to anything, it'd be like Joe Louis or Bill Wallace style of karate, where it was more geared towards kickboxing. So it was
Gotcha.
basically like kickboxing that was labeled karate.
Oh, that's cool. And pretty awesome to have your mom kind of lean into, right? Like the unfortunate violence that happens, when folks are bullied, right? And be like, yep, we're going to find you a solution to be able to defend yourself to hopefully either prevent, make it less, fight back, all the pluses that I'm sure we'll talk about of martial arts in general, of the various martial arts. Because I would imagine some parents go the opposite and then maybe over shelter their kids, and no, I don't know how you do that in the public school if you went to public school environment, but that seemed, and you can hear in probably what you do now, like such a formative thing to say, you know what, you're right, we're gonna help give you the tools to deal with this, to build confidence, to do all those kind of things. Did it didn't seem like it took a ton of convincing, or was there a series of conversations you had to have before you got that birthday present with your mom?
No, I think that she was aware that it was something I needed. Like I had consistently asked to join sports as a kid. So I wanted to do baseball, but she was worried if I got hit in the face with a ball, it would ruin surgeries.
Yeah.
Football, well, if I got hit in the face, it would ruin surgery. So most of it had more to do with my medical condition than it had to do with sheltering. I think she really
Okay.
just knew how much time, energy, and effort could have been erased had I suffered an injury that was possible. I think that martial arts had opened up a window that was a little different in her eyes because she knew about the ingrained, I guess you could say, cliches of honor, integrity, respect, discipline, and things like that. And I think that she knew I needed to be involved in something.
Okay.
Because at that point in my life, all I was doing was just doing school, then going home playing video games, and then that was it. And
Yeah.
so that lack of social interactions outside of school is not healthy. And then on top of that, just sitting down playing video games all day, also not healthy. So I
Right.
think she knew I needed some kind of an outlet. And I'm grateful that she chose that as the outlet that she would allow me to do, which is funny because ironically enough, it's one of the only sports that you're guaranteed to get punched in the face.
Right.
It's
Right.
like,
Yeah.
those other things are possibilities. This one's going to happen. So,
Right.
and then, I pretty much started fighting right at 12 after a month.
Oh, wow.
When I was 12 years old. My first competition was a month after that. I was there specifically to want to learn self-defense. Everyone joins for different reasons, but my goal was to stop getting my ass whooped. So
Yeah.
I was trying to throw myself into as many competitions as possible, training it every day if I could, I'd be there before class started training. I'd be there after class was over until they kicked me out of the doors. And I was there all the time. My mom would not drive in the rain. And so whenever it would rain, I would find rides to go there.
Wow.
I was always there. And then after that, I started full contact when I was 15 at a local nightclub called Plush. It was a 21 and up bar. They used to do these things called Friday night fights where they would just let anyone in the crowd join to fight.
Nice.
And of course, it was just a bunch of drunk people.
Yeah.
But the reason I was able to do that was because the promoter was my instructor and he gave me a rule. He said, well, you can fight, but then you have to leave. And also you have to get your mom to sign a waiver. So my mom had signed the waiver and then I was off to the races. My first guy I ever fought was 30 something years old. I was
Holy
15
smokes.
because it was a 21 and up bar. Like anyone in there had to be at least 21 and up. So that's where I kind of cut my teeth in full contact and learned what it was like to have a rowdy crowd. And they were definitely smoker fights. People in the ring with cigars, putting their drinks on the ring. It was a rowdy place, but I got fortunate to be able to tape and film all those.
Wow, that's pretty awesome. So for for kids being bullied, is that something you would suggest, is getting some sort of martial arts, some sort of activity to learn that self-defense like you did, or and I imagine there's no one size fits all to the that issue of bullying, but I guess what would your advice be to kids that have a similar thing going on?
First, let's address the word bullying.
Yeah.
I think that's a bullshit, nonsensical word, and I think we need to stop using it. Think about the word itself, bullying. There's no solution to bullying. There's no laws against bullying, and you can't really even define bullying because within bullying, we're talking about multiple issues that could span tons and tons of conversations that don't actually pinpoint what bullying is. If we start to dissect what bullying is, we start to break down the issues. We actually already have raw laws and rules and regulations against it. So when people are campaigning against bullying, cut that shit out. Campaign to get rid of the word. The word basically says that assault is now bullying. Stalking and harassment is bullying.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, so if someone beats someone up, it's very popular nowadays to say they were bullied. No. That's assault and battery.
It's a crime, right?
We have rules and laws against that. Treat it as such. If a child, like there was a gentleman out there right now, a friend of mine, his name's Tom DeBlas. Tom DeBlas is very well known in jiu-jitsu circles, and he's been campaigning to get schools involved with his organization to try to get kids who were bullied into martial arts programs pro bono to allow them an outlet. That's amazing.
Yeah.
But as adults, as the people in charge, as the people and the lawmakers and the rule makers, stop saying it's bullying when it's not. If someone's stalking and harassing someone, that's stalking and harassment. That has a rule against it. Also, I think we should hold children to very similar standards to how we hold adults when it comes down to actions. I think that if a child steals something, do I think that child needs to be put in prison forever? No, but I do believe that they should understand the consequences. And it's the same thing when it comes to bullying, because nowadays it's much different than when I was a kid. I used to get bullied at school and then I could just stay home and it was done. Well, the internet wasn't as prevalent as it is now. So what happens now is a kid gets bullied, he gets filmed, memes get made about it, whole entire Facebook pages get made about it, and then the entire school continues to heckle that kid until they kill themselves.
Right.
You can't escape it nowadays. So step one, stop using the word bullying, start calling it what it is. The other thing would be find an outlet. I don't think it has to be martial arts. I don't think it has to be sports. I don't think it has to be anything. I think just people have the need to want to feel accepted by a group or community. And something I talk about often when it comes to this, because obviously I'm somebody who is an advocate for anti-bullying, is what's the worst thing you can do to the most hardened criminal on the planet?
Other than not prison, really, because they're used to that.
No, even in prison. They're in prison. What's the worst thing you can do to the most hardened criminal?
Isolation, probably.
Isolation. Yeah. It is the worst form of torture. Isolate them. And what happens when a child feels like when they're being bullied? They're being isolated away from a group of people. They feel like they're alone. And so they're put in that position where not only are they feeling like they're outcast, but they're reminded about it every day. You're a loser. You're a bum. No one likes you. This is us making fun of you. All of us think that you should be by yourself. You should kill yourself. You're ugly. You're fat. You're whatever, right? That's
Right.
isolation. They're being isolated away from being accepted. And so I don't think it has to be martial arts. I think it just has to be an outlet where someone accepts you. And all it takes is one friend, just
Yeah.
one. If you just had one person to reach out, and like, for instance, my story and how I started martial arts, I just got lucky. I had one acquaintance at the time who now is one of my closest friends, still to this day. He showed some type of care. He picked me up. Teachers didn't do that. They watched me get beaten. He walked me to the office and he took the time to say, hey, I think you need this. And I did. And it gave me an outlet. It gave me friends. It gave me a place I could go where I felt accepted away from the place where I wasn't. And I no longer felt isolated.
Yeah, that's a great perspective. And for adults too, to your point, like adults with other adults, because there's so much inaction of, oh, I see that person like crying in the hallway, but I'm going to keep walking by and look at my phone, or just that one little, hey, are you doing okay? Totally changes someone's life and literally could save their life, to your point, because they're in the worst spot. Maybe something happened in their family, or they are isolated, to your point, from coworkers or classmates or somebody else, and makes a huge difference. And maybe think of, one of the random things that pop up on my thread of this guy, and he started soaking himself in like fluid, like gasoline or some kind of thing like that. And the title's like, hey, everybody helped except, or nobody helped except like the homeless guy. And so then there's all these people looking, they're just standing there. He's doing this, he gets the lighter out, and everyone's just moving away, right? Just watching him. And then this guy comes up and like takes the lighter out of his hand, he's talking to him. And it's like that one difference, that one person, to your point, can either on the spot, it seems, save their life, and or show that, hey, we do care. And I love your perspective where it doesn't have to be martial arts, but something where you are part of a group, and there's a lot of that out there, a lot of options. What does that person like to do? What are they should interest in, or if it's your child, and then kind of steer them towards that. Because the other thing too is you're not alone. You find when you start talking to other folks that have issues, problems, challenges as well, right? Which is also hard to do when you're isolated, right? You don't feel like really talking to a lot of people.
Yeah,
When it
it's
happens.
it's kind of like all consuming. You wind up going down this weird spiral where you isolate yourself in order to get away from the people who were trying to harm you.
Mm.
And then so you self isolate. Well, then after you self isolate, it puts you in a position where now that becomes a comfort blanket. And that comfort blanket is hard to get out of. Then all of a sudden, now that thing that you're using to help you is harming you. And then it's hard to get back out because you're afraid. You're afraid that, do you even remember how to interact with people? All the things that these people were saying about you are still stuck in your mind. Are you that thing? And you have this identity crisis where you start to believe the bullshit people say about you. And nowadays we have these weird acknowledgments that didn't happen before. Like if you get on your cell phone, we're looking for more likes. Likes
Yeah.
make you feel good. You're looking for comments on your post. You're looking for people to share your stuff. And it gives you like these great endorphins, and it makes you feel good that people can acknowledge, when people get excited about going viral, oh my God, my video did this. So we're getting rewarded for some of the most heinous behavior. If someone's being harmed, I could go over there and not film it and walk over and help someone, but I won't get a like. I won't get a
Right.
comment. No one will share that. So where's my reward? I'll just be a good person. Like it. And then we live in a society as well where you're shamed if you do try to make politeness go viral. Like
Right.
people shit on people all the time who film themselves doing something nice for someone else. Why wouldn't we want that?
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
you ask permission, why would we not want politeness and kindness to go viral?
Right.
Like, who are we being criticized by? We're being criticized by strangers online who did nothing for anyone else
Right.
other than criticize you for being polite.
Like you should just do that and not show everybody. But to your point, like, why not show the good? I mean,
Why
because
not?
there's so
Why
much
not?
crap out there.
Exactly. So it's okay that someone can share a picture of a child being beaten by seven people, which, by the
Yeah.
way, I'm going back to the Tom DeBlas thing where
Yeah.
he's shown that because he's showing that as an example of, hey, I'm going to help this kid. Somebody tell me who this kid is so I
Right.
can get the program. And it's worked. He's gotten several kids in programs. But But it's not okay to film giving someone who's homeless a blanket.
Right.
Like, oh, well, that's embarrassing to the homeless person. Yeah, I'm sure the homeless person is going to go on their Twitter account tomorrow
Right.
and they're going to go on their cell phone and go, oh my God, all these people know I'm homeless. They
Right.
know they're homeless. What they need is someone who's kind to them. They
Right.
need somebody to do something for them. And if I go to work, anyone out there, by the way, feel free to do this. Stop getting paid for your job. Just stop. Stop accepting paychecks.
Right.
Oh, I can't do that. I got to feed my family. Oh, I thought, oh, so you don't love what you do. That's how the internet works.
Yeah.
It's like people go, oh, well, if you loved it and you wouldn't do it for the money, like, bitch, stop doing getting paid then. You do what you do for money.
Right.
Like, that's not how the world works.
Things aren't free in life. Right.
Yeah, it's a shame because if we
Yes.
made kindness go viral, if we had more people being rewarded for good behavior, then what we would have is more good behavior.
Yeah.
So it's very simple. Risk reward, right? If
Yeah.
I film a video of someone getting beaten and shot, that's going to go viral. If I film a video of somebody getting $20, yeah, maybe a couple hundred people will watch, and 10 of those people are going to criticize the fact that you did it. And it's
Right.
going to make you not want to do that. So it's astonishing to me people's mentality because of the internet and these echo chambers of strangers who don't affect your day-to-day life whatsoever, but they affect your actions by criticizing, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely I'm 49. So same, like none of this existed, not even close. And then having, a teenager and two other sons that just are in this world. And it's like, hey, remember, like, that's not the real world. It's cool, right? Share things. You exercise, great. Share that, inspire others, all that. But don't let that drive your decisions you really make, because it's not great. And I have other family members that are younger too, and it's so influential. And to me, one of the great things, and I mentioned this with I talked to Travis Modal, Elbows Tight. I know you've talked to them and about this kind of stuff is the advantage of social media and podcasting and stuff like that is good. I think transparent, open discussions and sharing that positive. So hopefully more of this is out. Just like, again, I think a lot of the great work that you've done, or all the great work you've done with McDojoLife, right? Exposing, false martial arts that are dangerous. I mean, some of the stuff, and I'm sure plenty of folks, that are listening have heard it and seen it, is just, you actually try that in a real situation and you're going to die, right? In some instances, or get hurt severely, or, all that runs the gamut of everything. And then, to your point, showing, some of the videos, which are stomach churning of adults, throwing kids, right. And some of them die or hit, just all this crazy stuff. And let me pause for a second. You mentioned the Time to Blast work. Is the best way to get in touch with him to do that, like on his Instagram or something? Is it called a specific kind of effort to get kids or other folks into that?
If you go to his Instagram, I'm sure there's tons of information. I know there's tons of information about it on there. And
Cool.
all the contact information and stuff like that will be located on his Instagram. I highly suggest people back that program.
Yeah.
It does nothing but good for the community. I really love seeing those grassroots movements between martial arts schools. And again, he's a jiu-jitsu instructor, right? So of course his network is jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be jiu-jitsu, and we don't have to just leech on to his program. It could be anyone can do this. Anyone can go to your local school as an instructor and say, hey, I would like to offer 5 pro bono spots at my martial arts facility for kids who are being abused at your facility, at your school.
Oh yeah.
Kids who are having hard times. Send them to me. I can only afford X amount of spots, right? Because it's a job. I get that.
Yeah.
But if you could have one scholarship a year, where you go, I'll teach one kid for free a year. You just change. Well, imagine how many martial arts schools are out there.
Yeah.
Now start multiplying that up and see how many kids that you can affect.
Yeah.
You don't know the power of what you do. Like, again, my friend didn't think he would be making McDojoLife eventually. That wasn't the point.
Yeah.
My friend helped the person who needed help. And then luckily, because of that, I've been fortunate enough to be able to get lucky and on top of that, bust my ass to be able to have a platform that I can help people. And because of his one act of kindness, we've been able to get people thousands of dollars back after they've been ripped off from athletic apparel companies in the martial arts industry who did not pay and did not send money out. We've been able to have coaches removed who were abusive. We've been able to shut down martial arts studios who wind up having pedophiles inside of them. We've been able to go after these news stories that enlighten people and help people make better decisions when they're joining a martial arts school. That's all because of one act of one person.
Yeah.
So you never know who you're affecting when you do one kind act. And imagine if more of us did that. Well, we could be affecting change on a global scale just by giving a shit.
Yeah.
It's not hard to give a shit. It's actually easy to give a shit.
Yeah.
It's hard to ignore bullshit.
Yeah.
You know?
That makes sense. It's like the positivity butterfly effect. Like, do that one thing and then it ripples and makes a big difference either down the road or across the world. Literally. I mean, to your point, like now you've reached folks all over the globe, which is pretty amazing, which your buddy probably never thought of when he was like, hey, try this class.
Yeah,
When he
it was
helping you
strange,
afterwards.
man. I went to karate combat, not this last time. I was there, but the time before that. And I invited him out. I was like, hey man, why don't you come to karate combat with me? We'll have a good time. And
Nice.
it was like the first time in a long time that he's seen me in a martial arts environment. And it was kind of cool because a lot of people were walking up and they were saying hello and we were taking pictures and we were talking about things. And we had
Nice.
dinner with Boz Rutan and the president of Karate Combat. And we were it was like this weird thing where he got to witness like me being like a kid who was getting the shit beat out of him to being somebody who's recognized in an industry. And
Yeah.
that's all due to one act of kindness.
That's great. Is Karate Combat? I know Boss Root and comments and stuff. Is Wonder Boy Thompson also involved in that or no?
He is, yeah. He's
He is,
a
yeah.
commentator, what
Okay.
they call a sensei. So
Okay.
usually they have like three guys commentating interchanges. Sometimes it's Wonder Boy, but
Okay.
he's getting ready for a fight.
Gotcha.
So
Yeah.
I'm rooting for him. If he wins that fight, that means that he has a title shot again, which I never thought I'd see him get again. But
Dang.
after the complete clinic he put on his last fight, which is funny enough because I was in Miami for another event when I watched his fight. I
Oh,
hunted
wow.
Miami for one bar I could find, which was like right off the beach, like
Oh,
the strip right there.
uh-huh.
So everything there was like expensive and they didn't have the fight. So I just went like 2 blocks down to a local bar and it had one giant TV that was hosting the fight. Right when I walked in, that was when the first bell rang for his fight. And I was
Nice.
like, oh, we just made it. And I got to watch the entire thing. No one in that bar gave a shit about the UFC. It was just me, Robin Black, and I think Matt from Epic Roll Apparel, and then like one other dude. And we're
Oh,
just
wow.
glued to this TV and watching him put on just like this beautiful art piece of a clinic of
Yeah.
him kickboxing and showing off sport karate and his karate roots. Like that is the Stephen Thompson I know can be a title holder. And so
Nice.
I really rooting for him. I want it so bad for him. And so
Yeah.
if he wins this next fight, that's in the cards.
Wow. Yeah, it's such a fun style to watch. Like the amount that he moves it's exhausting watching him like move around and jumping and you're like, man. But it's not like he doesn't put the work in to get there. So, but yeah, it'd be super great to see him fight and win a title. Frankly, it'd be cool to have him hold that belt.
Yeah, man. Maybe I'll get lucky and be able to be there.
Oh yeah.
I'd love to be there and support like that when that comes. I know his next fight. His dad's cool as shit too. Ray's awesome. They're just really nice people.
Yeah.
Like they just are. That's who they are. Their
That's
entire
good.
family is cool. And they're very hospitable. Their gym is incredible. If you've
That's
never
in
been,
South Carolina, right?
yeah,
There. Okay.
Simpsonville. Yeah, Simpsonville. It's an incredible gym. It's beautiful.
It looks
It's
enormous.
so
I've seen the I think probably between him and then like Sensei Seth that's on there or
yeah,
at that gym a lot. Yeah, it's enormous. I mean,
yeah,
it
because
looks
I
pretty
think
awesome.
that Icy Mike and Sensei Seth do so much work together.
Uh,
And they every once in a while will have like a gathering and they'll just
okay.
bring in all these different YouTubers to come and train together. And it's at Icy Mike's gym. And then Stephen Thompson's gym is, a couple hour drive away, but it's
Right.
not that bad.
Yeah.
Um,
Not
you
that
know,
far.
I think he's in Myrtle Beach, around Myrtle Beach area, and then you can drive up to the Simpsonville to go to their gym. And
Gotcha.
it's just like really awesome gym. I thought I was in the wrong place. I like
Oh,
pulled
really?
up and they had, I thought I was like at a restaurant because when you pull up, it's a huge building. And
Right.
That building is their building. And I thought it was like, oh,
Oh,
this is a strip mall and there's going to be like, it's going to be in there somewhere. Nope. You pulled up, there's like tables and chairs outside, which is what made me think it was a restaurant. And I
oh
was like,
yeah.
well, that's weird. So I pulled up and I walked in and I was like, no, this is it. Beautiful, like full on like coffee shop in the front lobby, like straight up Starbucks in the front lobby, right?
Dang.
Multiple TVs where you can sit in the lobby and watch any of the dojo floors that they have. Multiple, I think 4 or 5 dojo floors right there on the main strip where they have curtains that will drop and raise and lower to
Like separate
separate
them. Oh yeah.
classes.
Wow.
A beautiful audio system where if you're standing in one of those dojo floors and the curtain drops, you can't hear the music next door.
No
Um,
kidding.
they have
That's
a
pretty neat.
full after school program that is separated almost. So it's like almost in its own little building that you have access to through a door. It's so when the after school kids come in, it doesn't interrupt anything going on. Cages,
Wow.
mats, bag racks, like you name it. It's a beautiful facility.
That's cool. That's good. Good. Put the work in. It seems like they're always giving back down there too with all those programs in the gym and everything.
Mm-hmm. Good
Um,
people.
yeah, that's cool. And speaking of giving back, your McDojoLife journey started, I know, a little bit from us talking, and then looking it up from another conversation with someone that kind of asked why something wasn't being done. Can you kind of touch on that? What sparked off the whole McDojoLife
Yeah,
path?
absolutely. So I was in jujitsu at the time, which is still the current art that I've been working on, although I've been slacking. So it's a weird job that I have. But I wound up going at the time. I was at a jujitsu program. I was a striking coach there. I was a kids program director, and I was also doing like the back end admin paperwork and stuff like that. So I wore a lot of hats there. And that day I was there for admin work. So I'm on the computer, like punching in contracts and following up with people who hadn't shown up or things like that. And my boss calls me and he goes, "Hey, man, I'm not feeling very well. Could you do me a favor? Could you teach this class?" And my boss, to this day, I think it's the only time I've ever seen him sick, ever. It's like a machine. So I was like, all right, cool. I'll teach the class. So I taught like an arm bar, triangle choke, and transition between the two. And then we sparred. And then afterwards, because it was a noon class, most people during a noon class either don't work that day or they have to go back to work immediately, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but most people just don't work that day. So I'm there and we're just kind of chit chatting after class. And we got on the subject of McDojos and what that was and all that and the McDojo stories. And everyone left except for one guy. And that particular gentleman, it was his second class ever. He did a free trial class, and this was his first official I'm a paid member class.
Signed up. Nice.
So he pulled me to the side and he goes, "Hey man, I'm a little embarrassed. I don't know what a McDojo is." And so I told him what I believe a McDojo is, which eventually became the basis for the 5 rules of the page. And then he just asked a very simple question. He goes, "Why doesn't anyone do anything about that?" And I was like, "I don't know." Like I have no answer
Yeah.
for you. But it went down a rabbit hole in my mind I couldn't get out of, which I still, I guess, never have crawled out of that rabbit hole of that question. Is there is no regulating body to the martial arts industry. That does not exist. There is no standards in this industry. There is no requirement. There is no certification that you need to start a martial arts school. You literally can start a martial arts school with no martial arts experience. And as long as you're charismatic enough, you can convince people that you have some type of a skill.
Right.
And history has shown that that is 100% possible, that you can be successful as an instructor in martial arts and never have trained martial arts. It's
Crazy.
fascinating to
It
me.
is.
So like that night, I couldn't get it out of my head. So I started researching like, well, what has there been? And the only thing I could find was a thing called Bullshido forums. And
Uh,
Bullshido forums was like a really big deal back in the day.
yeah.
But Bullshido forums since then has kind of like tried to branch out into bullshit of all kinds instead of just martial arts,
Oh, okay.
um, which I feel is almost impossible to do unless you have experts in those areas.
Everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah, so I stay in my lane. I just stick with fake martial arts and cults. But when it comes to what they were doing, I noticed a thread. No one had actually defined it. Everyone had different ideas and thoughts of what a McDojo was. No one actually defined it. And a lot of the arguments were very semantical. A lot of the arguments were very like individualistic. Like somebody would be like, "Oh, that guy got his black belt in like 3 years. He's not a real martial artist or he's not a real black belt." And I'm like, "Well, that's a bullshit statement." Like, what about BJ Penn? He got his black belt in 3 years. Are we saying
Right.
he's not a legitimate black belt? Oh, well, no. Well, either it's a rule or it's a guideline. And what you're telling me is it's kind of more like a guideline. And if it's a guideline, we need to stop labeling it as fact.
Right.
It's not. It's basically just saying, well, he doesn't art, I don't do. So I don't respect it. Well, why don't you
Yeah.
just say that? Don't sit there and say it's a McDojo when it's not. Or people will say, oh, they charge too much. They're a McDojo. Do you think Lamborghini gives two shits that people think they charge too much? No, they're charging the value of what they feel their car is worth.
Right.
And a lot of martial artists, unfortunately, are working two jobs and they're still not getting fine and they're still not getting paid well from their school. And I've noticed just in the last, over 26 years in this industry, but 10 specifically with McDojoLife alone, that most McDojos are not financially successful. They're McDojos because they choose not to learn business. Like almost every school that I've seen that is financially successful, almost, is not even close to a McDojo. It's not, it's because if you start looking at what requires a good business to run, you start looking at things that require a good martial artist, discipline and dedication and hard work. Whereas the people who don't run a good business, they show up right before class starts. They leave right when class is over. They never clean the mats. They never worry about budget. They never worry about background checks because they don't care.
Right.
So it's a breeding ground for a cult where it's like, oh, that guy charges too much. We build world champions. Well, what about the guy who doesn't want to be a world champion? That's about as useless as a dick on my elbow. He doesn't want that.
Yeah.
That's not what he's there for. And so you wind up getting these weird cults that breed not from the standard traditional idea of what a McDojo is, but from the opposite. It's fascinating to me. And I really have been fighting as hard as I can to try to redefine what people believe in that aspect because that's being passed down by people who don't know what the fuck they're talking about.
Right. Yeah, it's one of many great points that you've talked about is the perspective of, well, my art is better because of this, right? Or that one's invalid because of that. Without kind of the more open mind of, everybody's art is kind of their own, right? And certainly there's different applicability depending on what you do in situation and this and that, whatever. But to say that there's like a superior, style over another solely seems a pretty single-minded way to look at martial arts in general.
And it's a disservice to students when we think that the only reason they're there is to learn how to beat people up.
Yeah.
That's projection. That makes a poor coach. A poor coach pushes the agenda of what they want onto their student. It's also starting to be a breeding ground for a cult at that point, but that's a different story. But a good coach is going to look at the individual and say, what do they want out of this? And do the best that they can to provide that individual with a stepping stone to get from point A to point B using martial arts as that bridge in order to help them reach their goals. So if somebody comes in, I'll give you a couple examples. Let's say someone, which is an example I use often, I've seen it over the years, where someone who's obese comes in to a martial arts gym. They've been isolated. They would like a sense of community, and
Right.
that's something they're reaching out for. And they walk in and they go, man, my doctor told me I need to lose 30 pounds on my own so I can get a gastric bypass or a gastric sleeve. But
Right.
they said I had to do some work on my own. And I know that if I go to a gym by myself, I'm not going to do the work. I know that I cannot afford a personal trainer and a dietitian. So martial arts seemed like it'd be fun. I'd have friends and I could lose the weight. And of course, if you are a coach and you think the only reason that they're there is to fight and you start shoving that agenda down their throat, they're not going to keep showing up. They will not reach their goal. They will quit on you.
Right.
And the average martial artist drops out at a year. Why? Because I think the average instructor tries to shove their own agenda down their student's throat. We should look at what the student wants and help guide them. Next thing you know, this guy loses 30 pounds. Let's say he joined a keto, and everybody loves shit on a keto for good reason. But
Right.
let's say he joined a keto, right? And let's
Yeah.
say that same guy lost 30 pounds because any activity would be good activity for someone who does no activity.
Sure. Yeah.
So he loses 30 pounds like that, right? Then all of a sudden he gets the gastric bypass, and then all of a sudden he loses an extra 150, 200 pounds. Best shape of his life, saved his life, changed his life.
Right.
Then he goes online and starts showing off the Aikido that he's learned, that he's loved, that saved his life. And here comes some douchebag who goes, oh, that's bullshit. That doesn't work on the street. That's just as fucking stupid as me putting up a shelf in my office and someone walking in and going, that won't work on the street. No shit. I'm
Right.
putting up a shelf. Why would I do that on the street? That's the dumbest shit I've ever heard
Right.
because that guy's goal is not your goal.
Mm,
And we shouldn't necessarily shit on someone else's goals that are not our own. If it's
right.
making their life better and their instructor's not lying to them, who cares? Who cares? But martial artists are so self deprecating in our own industry where we love to just attack everybody who doesn't do what we do. And the only
Yeah.
reason we do that is because the guy who taught us did the same shit and we learned from them.
That's a great point. Learn behavior. And it sounds like there's opportunity for, you have a core curriculum in each art, I would imagine, right? But you can still cater that as the instructor to the individual person, right? So if, say I compete a lot, great. I'm gonna train a little bit different or a lot different or more often or hard, whatever than other folks that just want to come in and, to your point, lose weight, be more active, not be alone, be welcomed, right? And by and large, it seems that the legit, right, martial arts places are a place to do that across the different, whatever art style. And to your point, Nikito, and you're right, it is that's an example that probably bubbles to the top the most, right? That folks, and you see the flips and I'm kind of touching you and I throw it. But to your point, which is a great perspective that I'm taking in, from you now is, but that guy loves it and it changed his life and it made him better. And you know, why does it matter? Because you think, well, what if someone attacked him? He's not going to do Aikido, but who cares? Like, why do you care about that? It's a great
Yeah.
point. Like,
As long
you're
as
not
they're
his
being honest,
bodyguard or
you
something.
know, hey, they're being honest to him. If they say, hey,
Yeah.
man, you're going to learn some self defense,
Yeah.
but in all honesty, this isn't really a self defense art. It's more like an expression.
Mm-hmm.
And there are videos and photos and countless articles written about O Sensei doing chi powers and knocking down 30 people at once and
Yeah.
all that stuff, right? People are shades of gray. So, like, let's say hypothetically, there's George Dillman. Let's say George Dillman, in the beginning of his career, very much legitimate. He competed. He was a guy who fought people and stuff like that. But somewhere along the line, he lost his mind.
Mm-hmm.
He had a lot of yes men who made him believe he can knock them out with his chi powers without touching them, right? But even George Dillman had to have affected someone's life positively. I mean,
Yeah.
one of the things that he did for sure, that is a fact, is he did buy Muhammad Ali's gym. Like when Muhammad Ali's gym was getting sold, he saved that gym. So
Wow.
that's one good thing that he did. Even though me personally, I think George Dillman's a huge huckster and a fraud. I can't sit there and ignore the good just because I think the majority of what he did was bad. And
Right.
it's the same thing with like Aikido. Just because 90% of Aikido is not effective on the street doesn't mean that that other 10% does not have value. And it
Right.
does. I can laugh at certain shit, but I can also give a nod of respect to others.
Yeah.
Like, Dana White. Dana White does some of the most incredible things for the MMA community and martial arts community. I mean, he really did make MMA what it is today in the United States, but he still slapped the shit out of his wife. So I can
Yeah.
like him for things that he has done and hate some of the behaviors that he has done as well.
Right.
People are shades of gray. And it's just something that I think people have a hard time doing. I think people have to flip that switch in their mind. They can't be on the fence about anything. And the
Mm-hmm.
truth usually lies on the fence.
Mm. That's a good point. Good perspective. I mean, and along those lines, a lot of stuff's called out. It's pretty obvious, but it has an impact on the folks that are called out, right, on your channel. And we kind of touched on this. So, do you get a lot of backlash from folks that are called out in videos, or for being labeled as McDojos, or from the flurry of comments from other folks when a video is posted on there, but that you directly get from some of those folks?
Absolutely. It kind of comes with the job. I didn't think about that when I first started the job because I didn't know what I was doing was a job.
Yeah.
Like I started it as just like, oh, this seems like the right thing to do. And I started writing like long form articles on Facebook before Instagram was like doing anything other than just photos. And for me,
Yeah.
when Instagram came out, like I was just doing memes on there because I couldn't get anything done that I needed to get done, but Facebook allowed me to.
Right.
I wasn't doing anything on YouTube. And I noticed like over the years, I guess because I just stay consistent and I don't stop, it feels like I've built a house one brick at a time. Like every day, I just lay one brick and then I move on with my life. And then I lay another one. Next thing you know, I have a room and I'm like, oh, this is cool. Like
Nice.
people know
Yeah.
this room exists. Now you have a whole house. All right, cool. And now we have a block.
Right.
So you affect people through these daily grinds, but like you were saying, sometimes they do get a little butt hurt when you
Yeah.
start calling their instructor a fraud. Like cults are a strange thing because we have cults in everything we do. The root word of culture is cult. So in our culture is made up of a lot of cults.
Mm.
If I post a picture of a puppy tomorrow, I guarantee you there'll be at least 10 people that make that political in some way, shape, or form.
Right.
Those people are in a cult and they don't know it. And it's hilarious and sad at the same time when I post something and all of a sudden this guy goes, oh, I bet you they voted for Trump. And then like 10 comments later, somebody goes, I bet you they voted for Biden. And in my
Right.
mind, I go, you're both in a cult.
Right.
You
Right.
both in a cult and you're not aware of it. And it is sad.
Right.
Right. But when you call out the cult, well, then all of a sudden you start to get the backlash. And it's the same thing. When someone criticizes someone, people who like that person will defend them.
Right.
What they don't understand is sometimes they're showing cult-like behavior, where instead of just going, well, you said that about Steve. Steve can defend himself. He's a grown-ass man. They hop in like they feel obligated. Like I have to defend the cult. I have to protect
Gotta
the
say
leader.
something. Yeah.
Yeah. And you don't. You don't have to say shit. You can just move on with
Right.
life. Oh, well, he said that. Don't agree with that. If I say anything, they're not going to agree with me back. So I'm moving on with life. But people can't do that. So I called out like a guy named Edon Abelnick. Edon Abelnick runs a thing called the KEV system. And he shot a student doing gun disarms with live ammunition. That's a fact. He
Good
even made a
Lord.
video talking about the fact that he did this. He lied on his resume. He got caught and then he blamed it on the people who built the website, but he never
Oh my
went back
God.
and changed it. So he got caught with that. He got kicked off a gun range doing gun disarms with live ammunition. That's a fact because I spoke with the gun range owner. I spoke with the special forces, one of the gentlemen in the special forces unit that he claimed. That guy had never heard of him a day in his life before he got on the internet.
Yeah.
So he got caught in all of these lies. Oh, by the way, he did multiple seminars around the world where he had people paying full before the seminar. He never showed up and never gave refunds. Also, a fact that he admits to. And even though I had evidence and proof of everything that I said, his cult followers went in droves to comment sections defending the man.
Yeah.
And again, you can like him for the things that he did good for you, but you can't sit there and say he did not do the bad as well.
Right.
That's the problem with martial arts is we put these people on pedestals we've never met. The moment we walk into a building, the guy with the black thing around his waist that's
Right.
tied, we automatically go, that guy has honor and integrity and respect and discipline. How the fuck do you know that?
Instant
You don't know
status.
that.
Right.
I would never do that to my barber. I wouldn't
Right.
be like, that guy, discipline. You know,
Right.
I would never go to my mechanic and be like, this is the most honorable mechanic ever. Like, no, he's got a job.
Right.
Martial arts is a job where they're trying to teach you things. And of course, it can be deeper than that, but anything can be deeper than that. Art can be deeper than just taking a pen to pencil or pen and paper to pencil.
Right.
You know, it's not how it works. So martial arts is like this one of these things where we're just giving people virtues for no reason. They didn't earn it.
Yeah.
And so these cult leaders, unfortunately, or the cult followers, they see the leader and they put them up on this high pedestal beyond reproach.
Yeah.
No, I smoke weed. I drink way too much. I do not take care of myself dietarily, and I don't train as much as I should. Those are facts about myself. I am not perfect whatsoever. I have made mistakes. I have lied to people in the past, right? At the end of the day, I'm not perfect. I am
Right.
not saying that I am, but your instructor fucking isn't either. So
Right.
stop pretending they are, you know?
Yeah.
It's a detriment.
That's a great thing is maybe folks are the folks being honest with themselves where they are in their lives to be able to just put all that trust in someone instantly because they have a certificate on the wall. To your point, there's a belt around their waist that people know generally means something or should mean something. I'll say, have you found to that, like for the folks that believe some of the magic no touch, or hey, and we've seen the video. All right, just do this and then stop, and I'll run at you, but I plow you over that guy. Is it just generally folks that seem to need something, like they want something to believe in, to be belonged, like we talked about earlier? Is there a common thread that you found, or have you seen that aspect of not necessarily kind of the leaders of the cult, the McDojos, but the followers? Have you found trends in those folks as well?
Well, so I've been working on a documentary for a couple of years now. We worked on crowdfunding and getting everything started right before COVID. And right when we were about to film, COVID hit, and that sidetracked it for about 2 years.
Yeah.
For anybody who forgets, COVID was that little thing that happened, where people were terrified for their lives, and martial arts schools were all closed at that time. Regulations were making it so difficult. So we had to put that project on the sideline during that time. And then now we've been full steam ahead with it. I mean, we're going good now.
Nice.
We got Jocko Willink as an executive producer of our film.
Dang.
Adam,
Nice.
the president of Karate Combat, came on board. Yeah, man. The president of Karate Combat came on board with us. So we're working on the agreement now. And then now we're still in talks with Zoltan for Five Finger Death Punch, who's a third-degree black belt in jiu-jitsu. And then he might be coming on board. So we've been full steam ahead to try to make sure that we can make something that is truly groundbreaking. Like, it's never been done. So we want to make sure we do it right. And that ain't cheap.
Yeah, no doubt.
I even had a dude one time, he was like, why don't you just take your iPhone and just like get in your car and just drive? I'm like, yeah, I'll just drive to Japan.
Right.
Yeah. I'll just eat nothing while I'm there. Oh, all those cost money, huh? Oh, yeah. So the sound quality will sound like shit because I don't have a sound guy to master it. Okay. Right. And the iPhone, if I get a little smudge on there, all of a sudden it looks like dog shit because I didn't get a real camera. Yeah. Okay.
Like, you get out what you put in, right, for it. Yeah.
But when we were doing the documentary, the reason that I brought it up is because we did get to interview cult experts.
Oh, good.
We interviewed a psychologist. We interviewed literally a guy who is a high up in the Catholic Church who was a cult expert. We also interviewed a gentleman or a woman who is a psychiatrist, and she had like over 20 cases of people come to her who had to be helped because they were inside martial arts cults, from things like rape, fraud, pedophilia, and even things like waterboarding, multiple cases of waterboarding, which is wild.
Yeah.
Apparently, yeah. It's like people who were never in the military all of a sudden think that
they're going to try it.
Yeah. You're going to waterboard you. Like, no, that's dumb. But I've never been in a street fight situation where all of a sudden I had to be waterboarded.
Right.
Like, it's the dumbest. Anyway. So but during those conversations, we started to learn a lot about what makes a cult. And I actually have an interesting thing is most people do not believe they could fall victim of a con man. They truly don't. People do not feel they could fall victim of a con artist or a cult. They think they think that they got it, right? But I actually have a series of questions to prove to anyone that that's absolutely ridiculous. All of us, any of us, can fall victim of a con artist. Yeah. And the questions go just like this, all right? I'll ask you, Kevin. So, are you a doctor?
No.
Do you think you'd be better at performing open heart surgery than a doctor?
No.
Do you think you'd be better at performing a brain surgery than a doctor?
No.
Are you a lawyer?
No.
Do you think you'd be better at practicing law than a lawyer?
No.
Are you a mechanic?
No.
Do you think you'd be better at fixing a car than a mechanic?
No.
Are you a con artist?
No.
Do you think you'd be better at understanding cons than a con artist?
No.
Exactly. People forget that a con artist can be a job, a career. There are plenty of examples of this where you had to practice and work on that craft to be able to manipulate people.
Yeah.
It's not a thing that they just got lucky. Oh, all these people were naive. No. A lot of times people are very well educated who fall victim of cults. Look at the documentary Wild Wild Country that's on Netflix. That particular cult purchased land in the United States, and that cult was made up of doctors and lawyers and architects and engineers, and the cult itself built the town. The cult built the town. It wasn't like they outsourced it. They built it. And so these were not dumb people. These were highly educated people.
Right.
And next thing you know, the town next door, they start getting poisoned and killed because of the cult.
Holy smokes.
Like what people think is they think that they're smarter than they are. We're not. We
Yeah.
all probably are smarter at maybe one or two things than most people.
And other
But
folks.
other than that, that's it. If I go to my barber is probably way better at cutting hair than me because they went to school and studied.
Yeah, it's their thing.
If I went to my mechanic, they're better at that. But that doesn't mean they can't be taken advantage of. I would have to go to a cult expert, a psychologist, or I'd have to go to someone who has been victim of a cult to really understand what that's like. Me, myself, I've been studying cults in the martial arts industry for over a decade. And still to this day, I'm always learning something.
Yeah.
And it just astonishes me how naive people really are to think that they can't fall victim of a professional in their profession.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. That's a good point. I mean, and depending on where you're at in your life, what's happening, maybe you have that opening that's like a need that needs filled, right? And that person knows how to work it to be like, oh, I see a gap where I can fit in and get your money or make you do this or something, right?
Joshua Fabia is probably a prime example of somebody who did that to two people, did that to Diego Sanchez and Stephan Bonner. He started the School of Self-Awareness, even though, ironically enough, Joshua Fabia has no self-awareness whatsoever. He took advantage of Diego and quite literally fucked up the tail end of his career. Now, Diego...
That's who was his manager in his last fight? One of his last couple of fights or something?
Yeah, like when he was doing MMA.
Right.
And what's astonishing to me is that all the red flags were there. The public, the world was saying, dude, this guy is ruining your career. Please, look at this. But you have to remember that's not how it works. There's this term called cognitive dissonance. And for anyone who doesn't know how that operates, let's say we believe that we were told from the time we were a child that the sky is red. And we never met anyone else to say the sky was blue. We never did. 20 years goes by. Sky's red, sky's red, sky's red. Then you go move to a new city out of your cult. And then all of a sudden they go, hey, man, the sky is blue. And you're like, it's ridiculous because you've had this thought ingrained in your mind for 20 years.
Right.
Now you have to make a decision, which is literally what the whole entire Matrix movie is based off of. Do I continue to believe the lie, even though I know it's a lie? I have proof, definitive facts that is a lie. People have shown all the evidence. Do I continue to believe the lie, or do I uproot my entire belief structure, my entire world, and change my mind? Most people continue to believe the lie because when you're in a cult, you have to remember that, let's say in a martial arts studio, right? There's little things that people do, even in jiu-jitsu, that are cult-like, like the term creonche, like, oh, you're a traitor, you went to go train in another gym.
Right.
If you believe that's a bad thing and you've been convinced that's a bad thing, when someone tells you that it's not a bad thing, you'll fight to make sure that your belief stays what it is. Or the gauntlet where people get a belt promotion, so they line up on either side and they whip you with a belt. Right. That has nothing to do with jiu-jitsu. Nothing. Right. But if I told anybody that that's bullshit and they went through it, they'll fight to the death to tell you why that's appropriate, even though it's not even close.
Yeah.
But they'll fight for it because they were taught. That's what they believe. Even though the cognitive dissonance is right there. I could say, how does that help your jiu-jitsu whatsoever? They will not have an answer.
Right.
In what part of jiu-jitsu do we apply getting whipped with a belt?
Right.
Is there a curriculum about getting whipped with a belt? Is this going to make your guard better? No, it's not. It's just a bullshit ritual that someone came up with. And people are like, well, it's traditional. No, it's a tradition that was started by very specific gyms. I can make a tradition out of anything, right? Traditionally, I wear this hat. That's my tradition. It's not traditional because I didn't start wearing the damn hat. Wearing hats has been around, right? But me personally, I started my own tradition, right? So when it comes to belts in jiu-jitsu didn't originally exist. When jiu-jitsu first came around, there were no belts. Belts came later. So it wasn't something that was developed at the beginning where the founder was like, yes, you must get whipped with belts. That's bullshit. Some dude just made it up And then some naive people just went with it while they were being taken advantage of. And now some dumbasses keep perpetuating that cycle. And yes, 100%, I am talking to you. Anyone out there, I call you a dumbass if you think that getting whipped with a belt by multiple people is somehow a part of the jiu-jitsu journey. It's not. You're being taken advantage of. If someone said that shit to me, I'd be like, no. That's it. Problem solved. Do I not get the belt anymore?
Right.
Like, am I excommunicated?
Right.
All right. Like, no, I'm a grown ass man. I can make decisions on my own. I don't need to do it because everyone else is doing it. That's that whole "would you jump off a bridge if all your friends did" comment.
Right.
Like, apparently a lot of you motherfuckers would.
Although I will say, I did just watch The Accountant recently, and Ben Affleck does use his belt to whip someone in the face and then do some things like that. So I don't know. According to Hollywood, there's belt fighting. So perhaps that's the application or something like that. I don't know.
I got you. Yeah, it's just strange because a lot of people they'll do cult like stuff, and then they'll point at a different cult and they'll be like, "Oh, that's ridiculous." I'm like, "Don't you get whipped with a belt?" Well, it's different. Like, okay, why? Because it's jujitsu. Who gives a shit?
Right.
Like, fighting is only important in 3 places. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but fighting is only important in 3 places: in a martial arts gym or studio or dojo, whatever you want to call it, in an actual altercation where you have to defend yourself, or in a tournament setting, whether it be an actual fight or a tournament of jiu-jitsu, judo, karate, whatever. That's the only 3 times that skill's going to be applied. So for some reason, we put this skill on such a high pedestal. No one ever in the history of any company, like let's say it's me, I'm the head of research and development, the CEO's over here, the CFO's over there, and we're talking about how to grow this company. We're going to make this company better. Then we're having this conversation about numbers, and all of a sudden the janitor walks in and we go, hold on. Steve here is a black belt in jiu-jitsu. Let's see what Steve has to say about this. No one gives a shit what Steve has to say about this because that has nothing to do with what's going on here. It does not apply with what Steve will say. We can't put our stockholders and shareholders in a rear naked choke and hope they just pay us more, right? Yeah. So that skill is not really that useful until you need it. Kind of like swimming. Swimming is only important when you're in water.
Right.
That's it, right? Fighting is important when you need to fight. But when does that happen? So what else are we getting out of martial arts? That's the real question people need to ask. What are you getting out of this beyond kicking and punching and choking and throwing people?
I think that's probably what I would say is not really a disagreement, but not a, like your 3 are like a directly tangible. When will you make these physical movements like you do in the gym outside of there, right? In a tournament, in a real fight or a paid fight or something like that. But I think it's more the intangibles that you do get out of it, right? The calmness you can have because you've just gone through adversity, the like we talked about losing weight earlier, like super legit, you can burn losing weight from various martial arts because I mean you're moving all the time, whether you're kicking, punching, doing both of those, rolling, all that good stuff. And to me, that's I think the mental aspect of pushing yourself, particularly if you're someone that hasn't pushed yourself in your life, or maybe others have pushed you, right? And now it's up to you to do that on your own. That to me is the biggest value of it.
Absolutely.
And of course,
100% agree.
And yeah, it helps if you can hip toss somebody that won't leave you alone and they grab you. But
that's kind of the point, right? The point is that so many people put this skill of fighting on a pedestal, and that's not the point at all.
Right.
People, I think, have this idea or thought of Pai Mei being real. Like, and anybody knows who Pai Mei is. It's the character from Kill Bill, right? The old man on the mountaintop who's invincible that no one can beat, who's like 175 years old, right? Like, that's not real. That's a character in a movie. That's not how reality works. Reality works like this. You can start at a young age, and eventually maybe you can go well into your 30s and even into your 40s. And hell, you got guys like Yoel Romero who he might be able to do it because he's a phenom in his 50s, right? But when it comes down to it, most of us, our bodies are going to deteriorate as time goes on. No matter what techniques you have, if you've had a stroke, if you have cerebral palsy, if you're missing a limb, if you've broken certain things, if you have arthritis, the list goes on of issues that could come up over a long period of time. So what did you get out of this other than fighting people is kind of the point. And you just mentioned a whole bunch of good things that you can get out of this other than just fighting people. And I think that when people start to realize that early on, yes, learning how to defend yourself is an important skill. But if that's all you got out of this, I truly believe you wasted your time, because that skill will diminish over time.
Yeah.
Other things might not. Your ability to teach people.
Yeah.
Did you help someone? Did you, like, for instance, Tom DeBlas? He's not fighting MMA anymore. So what is he doing? He's using his platform to help kids who are in need, to get them in programs to help them. Well, I can't think of anything huge, too much better than that in terms of using martial arts to help other people. And it had nothing to do with he himself beating people up, So I just think that people maybe need to look at martial arts a little differently, and then maybe we'd have more respect for other martial arts.
Yeah, absolutely. And to that, for adults that are in martial arts. So I've been doing jiu-jitsu like 4.5 years. And I think I'm 49, right? So I'm one of the older guys. So it helps keep me active in addition to working out, all that good stuff. And I'm a father, so I'm a little different. So I'm used to kind of teaching people either at work or at home as a dad, and learning, trying to be a humble dad, all that good stuff. But it helps in martial arts, right? So when I'm in jiu-jitsu class and that new person comes in, whether it's, a man or a woman, or they're big or they're small, whatever. And when you're new, you're just going to get it, right? You're going to go, oh my God, this is awful. Ooh, and then realize, yes, I want to do this, or I'm out. Right. And so for consciously, and not just jiu-jitsu, but whether you're, in Taekwondo or karate or whatever art you're in, right? You are going to be better than the person that walks off the street, right? If you've been there for a few weeks, for a few months, certainly 6 months or a year or more. And so you really have an obligation, even if you're not the instructor, to like not screw up that person's like life and martial arts journey right there. Like you can really help make a difference when you see, and the biggest example I get is, of course, when you're first rolling or even warming up or drilling, right? And you let's say get in the mount and someone's not used to that, or they had an experience where they were getting beat up from someone, some bad, and it's flashing back to look to recognize them and realize, like, do they look totally freaked out right now? Are they having a good time? And if not, you're not there to prove like you can beat the new person. Of course, like they're new. Just like,
you should be able to.
Just like if I just started reading the book on computer programming and you're an ethical hacker, like you're going to ruin my whole setup. But that's not really what you should do, right? You should share that knowledge, help me get better. And so I like your point, not just if you're the highest level person that's had a successful MMA career, you're at the top, like Tom Blast of jiu-jitsu, and all that. But really, if you've been there just a little bit, like help the folks come in and think back to what it was like for you. You couldn't throw a good kick either. You looked like shit when you started, right? But now you have a better kick. And so help that person get better instead of just looking at him. And I generally from legit, like I did Taekwondo when I was younger, and then jiu-jitsu when I'm older, have generally found, again, the legitimate non-McDojo places are very welcoming with that. And that's what gets people to stay. I think in the good places, the folks that leave just don't want to do it, right? And maybe they did get smashed a little bit, which is going to happen. Like you're going to get hit, to your point, you're going to get kicked, or you're going to get, choked, and it's going to suck. And then it's up to you, right? Other than if you're being abused or in the cult or, something like that, like the other part is up to you. So there is a give and take, I think, of be nice to folks, welcome them, help build them up. But, for folks that want to get into martial arts, you got to realize like it's not easy. Any of them, right? You're going to have to put some work into a legitimate martial art, whether it's boxing, wrestling, karate, taekwondo, jiu-jitsu, whatever it is. And there's so many more. And it's fine. It's like your own test. Like check it out if you like it, and then go to the next thing on the menu and try something else, or realize, you know what? I just want to go to Planet Fitness. I don't want to do this. And that's cool.
I want to add to that too, because I think it's an important thing for martial arts school owners to keep this in mind. A good business doesn't blame the customer. So if you're trying to run a good, solid martial arts program and people are leaving, which in the business we call that your retention rate. Right. If your retention rate's dropping off a cliff and you keep blaming the student, oh, well, they're too lazy, or it was too hard, or they didn't like it. And rather than blaming them and saying, well, that's on them. No, it's not. It's on you. Yeah. How can you fix that? How can you make it a better environment for your student? How can you make it so that way they're enjoying the program? It doesn't have to diminish the technique, but what it does have to do is it has to be more, I guess you could say, thoughtful in terms of what the consumer base is looking for. And most people are going to martial arts aware that it's not going to be easy. So if there are martial artists, we don't cold call people. We're not just randomly going on the phone book. They already wanted to buy what we're selling. And so what we're selling hopefully will also come along with some respect and some camaraderie and a sense that people give a shit. And free piece of business advice for that, for anyone out there, you want to help your retention rates right now, incorporate 246 calls. 246 calls. If someone hasn't been there in 2 weeks, call them. Hey, man, I noticed you haven't been here in 2 weeks. I just want to make sure you're okay. Oh, well, now I give a shit about my client.
Right.
What most people do is they wait until the bill is overdue and then they go, hey, man, I noticed you haven't paid me in 2 months. That shouldn't be the first phone call you make. If you really care about your clients and you don't want to be a McDojo, run it like a business. And all of a sudden you'll realize that you're running it better and you're taking care of your clients better. So you want to keep better retention rates? Stop blaming them for leaving. Start calling them when they don't show up. Care.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you'll see your students become harder workers. They'll stay longer because they see you give a damn.
That's a great point. If the constant is you and people keep walking out the door, it's that whole, you mentioned Jocko earlier, but like extreme ownership, right? Like own, okay, what am I doing wrong? And then fix it. That 246 is great. It's almost, not almost, but it makes me think of, so I do program management and healthcare IT. And so it's also a great concept, I think, to check in with your teams, right? In whatever business, it'd be good. Like, hey, check in every couple of weeks, check in every month, check in, because the standard kind of in business is once a year, we're going to do an eval and we'll talk about what you did well and what you didn't. And then, right. But are you talking about that before the annual eval, especially if it's not a good one? Because if you're not, and then if you're waiting till people are leaving your school, right? Did you talk to them about it at all? Did they feel like they can come talk to you if they're like, hey, I don't know about this? And in addition to, which probably is asked across multiple disciplines, when am I going to get the belt? How do I get the next belt? Right. That's a question that in whatever discipline you can think of, but you got to expect those questions are coming. And now the question might be, don't focus on the belt, just keep showing up. Or, okay, here's some things that you have to know to get to this, right? And that varies across too. But knowing like that's feedback you're going to have to give.
Yeah, well, like setting tangible goals for students and requiring students right off the bat to tell them how important it is for tangible goals.
Yeah.
I find that if the only thing that's set as a goal for students is belts, that's all students think about.
Yeah.
That's our job to guide them. And so a lot of gyms are like this. They don't tell you to set goals. They don't say at the end of class, hey guys, here's my goal for you guys for the rest of the week. I want everyone in here to try to get at least 3 sparring rounds in after class. You don't have to get them in right now. You got a whole week to get it done. You can get all 3 in the day if you want. But my goal for all of you is to get that done. That's a tangible goal. And most places don't set that. And they don't put the importance of setting tangible goals onto their students. Because when people come in, for instance, if they want to lose weight, if you're a good trainer, you're going to measure them and you're going to find out statistics and numbers that we can write down. And then we're going to come back to the table in a week and we're going to do that again. And then we're going to come back in another week and then we're going to do that again. And I can say, oh, dude, this week you lost 5 pounds. That's a tangible goal that I could see you getting closer to where you want to be. But with martial arts, they go, well, when do I get my belt? Oh, well, you'll get it when you get it. Well, how stupid is that? Yeah. Like, okay, well, what about, like, how about this? What I'd like to see out of you is I'd like to see you do these things. If you can do these things, I think that would get you a step closer. And then you do those things because you were guided by a good instructor. Right. And then all of a sudden they go, okay, you did those things now. That's a good start. Now I need you to see you do these things because I know you can. Then you start. But if you keep setting those tangible goals, or at least instill the importance to your students that they're there, they'll set their own goals because everyone has different goals. Next thing you know, you have somebody who stays with you for years.
Long time. Yeah. That's a great point. I think a good supplement to that is the ownership part of it is to journal, right? Like I have I daily journal better than I jujitsu journal, frankly, but saying like, what do I want to accomplish? What should I work on? What am I doing well, not doing well? I think can supplement from your instructor who's more in the know and sees you probably more objectively. Because again, like I think, oh, I'm good at this. And then I go roll with somebody else or an open mat. And I'm like, oh shit, I'm not as good as that. I thought at that thing, the reality smacks you and then, knocking it down and then also not getting caught. Like if you're having that bad week, like it's not going to last forever. And that happens to everybody. Right. So,
Like people will say things like, I want to get better at my guard. That's not tangible.
Yeah.
That's and you're never going to reach better at my guard, because every time you come into class, you're going to get better at your guard if you practice it, right? But if
Yeah.
you say, all right, I'm going to go spar today, and during the open mat, I want to stop 3 people from passing my guard. And you
Yeah.
go, okay, well, I can measure that. I can say, well, I stopped this white belt and I stopped this blue belt, but the purple belt crushed me. All right. And well,
Right.
now I have a new goal. All right, cool. We'll scrap that. Now I want to stop that purple belt from passing my guard. And
Yeah.
every time I show up, I can see if I did or didn't. Right.
Yeah.
But not having tangible goals, I think, is where most people fail.
That's a great perspective for martial arts and life, frankly, which is funny how the parallels go, isn't it?
Yeah, they just go together, man.
Which hopefully has been a theme. I know it. You've talked about some of that before, but to talk about speaking of kind of tangible, the McDojoLife documentary, is there a new timeline for that to come out? Like, is there a release date or anything for that?
Well, it doesn't really work that way. So when you're working on a project like that, release dates happen after purchase. Release dates happen after completion. So we're not even close to that step
when it gets
yet.
picked up. Gotcha.
Yeah. So there are a lot of steps in between. And of course, I'm learning as I go. But when we first started, of course, it was about 6 months of preparation and planning before we were going to originally film. We did 3 months of prep. And that prep was like, all right, well, how are we going to do our campaign? When are we going to do our campaign, which was crowdfunding campaign? Mm-hmm. What tiers are we going to provide for people? What can we afford? Who's down and all that? So it was about 3 months of prep. Then after that, it was like, okay, well, we have 3 months of crowdfunding, because it was a 90-day crowdfund, which, by the way, sucked because we had 2 major obstacles that we weren't even aware were going to be obstacles. One, there was a guy apparently on some website who was trying to do a documentary about red belts in jiu-jitsu. He raised all these funds, stole the money, and disappeared. We didn't know about that going into our project, but that came up over and over again. And all it takes is one asshole to go on there and be like, this is just like that. Like, I don't even know that guy.
Right.
Like, I didn't even know that thing was a thing until just now. Right. So there was a lot of people who had donated to that who didn't want to donate to another documentary because they were jaded from what he did.
Right.
The other thing that popped up was some douchebag on YouTube found out that we were raising funds for a martial arts documentary about frauds and cults in the industry. He took a whole bunch of clips from my Instagram page and from my social medias, did voiceover work on top of them, and put out like a 20 or 30-minute little short YouTube video and called it a documentary about frauds in the martial arts industry. That thing went 11 million views. 11 million views. All because the dude just piggybacked off of what we were doing.
Right.
And it was infuriating, to say the least. Now, I am happy that there is something out there that did help further and expose these frauds. So on that note, I'm extremely happy. But what it didn't do is it didn't do what we were trying to do. That's a YouTube video.
Yeah.
Like, we're trying to make something bigger.
A legit documentary.
Documentary. So it did shoot us in the foot. So we wind up only raising $20,000, even though we had backing of people like Kelly Slater. We had people like Sean Patrick Flannery. It was being talked about. Like, Rogan never talked about the documentary, but he talked about McDojoLife a lot during that time. Yeah. So like, we had all this exposure that was being overshadowed by all this other crap that had nothing to do with us. So after that, it took, I was like, all right, we crowdfunded for the 90 days. So now we're 6 months in. Then it's like, all right, well, when is everyone available to film? Because we have to remember, on $20,000 budget with a crew of 6 people, that's not a lot of money.
Yeah, right.
That's like maybe a couple days of filming.
Right.
You have to remember that also has to be edited, that sound also has to be mastered. Like, the equipment is not necessarily all of our equipment. Sometimes that's rented. I had to pay for food, had to pay for hotels, had to pay for insurance. You got to pay for a lot of things. So that money goes by like that. So we wind up going, okay, well, we were scheduled. They were available to film 3 months after. So now that would have made us like what? So 3 months, 3 months, 3 months in, right? So we're 9 months in.
Gotcha.
And right about a month before we were going to film, COVID happened. And it was like, well, shit. And of course, we were all told it was like 2 weeks to flatten the curve, if I remember correctly, right? It's 2 weeks. It's going to be 2 weeks. That was a fucking lie.
Didn't quite work out that way.
Yeah, it was like a year before restrictions even thought about raising. And then we were like, oh, the restrictions are easing up in California now. let's go ahead and start scheduling to film. Well, again, this is a production company. It's what they do for a living. So it's not like they just drop everything and go. We had to schedule it out. So we're like, all right, cool. We got the time and date. A week before we're supposed to film the second time, COVID restrictions shot back up.
Yeah.
All right, well, that sucks. So then we had to make a decision. We're at a crossroads. Like, look, all right, man, well, at this point, we're roughly about 2 years into the project, if not a little bit more. And it's like, well, we have other people's money. What do we do? Like, it's just sitting in an account. Like, we haven't touched it, but it's like, what do we do? They were like, well, let's just go ahead and film. Let's just go ahead and do the best that we can with what we have because we can make something good here. And we wind up working on the project. We wind up filming for 3 months, which if anybody looks at $20,000 budget, you can tell that I pulled an ass load of my own money. And then they worked for free. I worked for free. And we just like, I was able to give them that original budget, pretty much all of it. But that lasted like no time at all. So they were working for free the majority of the time.
Were you able to get any sponsors on board for that part?
No. Not during that part. No. Like It was, dude, during COVID, no one had money. Like during COVID, no one had anything. There were businesses closing left and right. So no one was investing in anything.
Yeah.
We even had an investor who was going to invest like $60,000. And right before COVID hit, he had to pull out. Yeah, he had to close 2 of his businesses. So it was like we got put in a position where it's like we just got to do with it what we can.
Sure.
Well, we came out the other end. We wound up putting together what they call a pitch deck, a sizzle reel, which is the concept trailer. And then we wound up putting together like an investor package. Well, that got around to a friend of mine named Jonathan Sadowski. Jonathan Sadowski is a producer. He's a jiu-jitsu guy as well, but he's also on this show called like Sex Life or Sex Love or something like that on Netflix. And it's a huge show. Well, he got a hold of the trailer and he was like, dude, don't settle. Don't settle. Like, you have something good here. Nice. He was like, what you guys did with that short budget, he was like, get more budget. He was like, you could make something great. So he was like, we were like, well, the problem is that right now that we're trying to put together the trailer, the sizzle reel, and none of it is turning out the way we like it to turn out. So he's like, I got a guy for you. He got us in touch with an Emmy award-winning director. His name's Adam Wood. So Adam Wood is now the director of our film.
Awesome.
Best thing that's happened to the project so far. Adam Wood came on board. He got us in contact with his production team. So now we're all working together. He got us represented by a company called UTA, United Talent Agency, which is one of the top 3 talent agencies in the world. So we have that representation now. Then randomly, as we're still working on the project, Mo from ADCC. I don't know if anybody knows Mo or not, but I had been talking to Mo for a long time, and I did not know Mo was Mo from ADCC. I didn't know that. We were just talking. I never we were talking in the DMs and I never really looked through his shit. I was just talking to a guy named Mo. All right. But we had talked often. We talked about the fight sports controversy because Mo had a page dedicated to just that, which he still does, by the way, a page dedicated to some shady things in jiu-jitsu.
Gotcha.
But I talked to him mostly through that page. So I didn't know he was Mo. Well, randomly he asked me, he goes, hey man, do you want to go to ADCC? I was like, yeah, but it was sold out in 2 days. I was like, I don't know how you can get me in. He goes, I run it. I don't give a fuck. Yeah, that's cool. So I was like, all right. So he got me a media pass. Me and my homie, Matt from Epic Roll, we wind up going out to ADCC, had a blast. And I happened to be in the back fighters area where they're getting warmed up. And I had my media badge and I look over and there's Jocko, one of the sponsors for ADCC. And I was like, I got to go talk to him.
Yeah.
And I walked up to him, super surreal. I went to go walk up to him and he goes, oh, hey, Rob. And I was like, oh,
dang.
My God. But he had already talked about some of the work that I had done on his show before, specifically the kid in Taiwan who was put in a coma and killed. He talked that story in depth. And so he goes, oh, hi, Rob. He goes, how's the documentary? And I was like, no fucking way. So I was like, all right, well, I started telling him about the budget thing. Started off with yeah, man, we only raised $20,000, and he stopped me and he goes, why didn't you ask me for money? And I was like, I didn't know I could do that.
Dang, right.
I didn't know that was a thing. He's like, I'm a supporter of what you do. And then midway through the conversation, ADCC starts. So he got pulled away and he sat down and, he started watching the fights. But I was like, all right, well, let's call that. Let's see if he's being serious. which he's not a guy who's usually not. So,
Right.
I mean, he's a nice dude for sure. Like, he's
Sure.
a super awesome guy. He's much more polite and funny and witty than I think that most people would probably think. If you think like Jocko,
The
you saw
stern, like,
him, you were
yeah.
like Navy SEAL Jocko. Like, you would think differently, but he's just like a cool dude. Like, he's just a dude.
Nice.
And so I had our team send him a email, which went to his assistant. We got a response in an hour. I was like, we set up a meeting. I got my ticket that day. I flew out to the Victory,
Yeah.
where which we had already filmed with Dean Lister out there for the documentary originally. So it was cool to come back there. And we had like a 2.5 hour meeting, which is like above and beyond what I thought we'd be able to get in terms of time.
Yeah.
And we just talked about the project and fake martial arts and the impact this could make for the world and the community. And then when it was over, I just asked him, I go, hey, man, is this something you want to be a part of? And he goes, absolutely. Shook my hand. A couple months later, several months later, we finally agreed on the terms. And now he is an executive producer of the film. Awesome. And then now we have been able to raise about 1/3 of the funds that we need in order to get the project completed. I'll find out this weekend if another major investor will be coming on board. And if that happens, man, we might be off to the races ASAP. But
that's great.
This project is extremely expensive. And what people don't get is I don't just fly by myself with a handy cam. I have a camera crew.
Yeah.
Flying that equipment costs money. A ticket to Indonesia right now from where I am is roughly about $1,500, if not more. That's for me. Now times that by 6, put all those people in hotels, feed all of them, pay for that insurance. And remember, I'm going to a cult in the middle of the woods, in the middle of nowhere in Indonesia, where they do not speak English. So I have to hire a translator and a security team.
Yeah, I bet.
So like it gets a little more expensive than people would imagine.
Yeah.
Think about it on the surface, but that's just one of those trips. I have to do that like 7 or 8 more times to different places around the world where I'm confronting frauds. I wish I could name all of them, but the stuff that we already filmed, by the way, is absolute gold. We had a fraud come in to teach a seminar about fake martial arts. I filled the classroom full of martial artists from different disciplines, and this guy thought he was just teaching regular old people.
New people. Dang. It's like a sting operation.
Oh, yeah. And then we did experiments where I tried to see if I could do the same thing to other people. So I completely invented a martial art, made it up, made up staff, made up a whole bunch of quotes that don't exist, gave people titles that don't exist, like put a website up, and we hosted a self-defense seminar. And during that seminar, I just taught them stuff I learned from movies, because anyone can do that. Anyone can watch Under Siege 2 and learn the wrist lock.
Yeah.
Anyone can watch Enough with Jennifer Lopez.
Yeah.
Right? Anyone can watch Miss Congeniality 2. And I just taught them shit that I saw from movies to show just how easy it is to manipulate people, even though you might not have any experience whatsoever. Right. They all fell for it. I did a pressure point knockout on one of our camera dudes.
Nice.
And he had no martial arts experience whatsoever. I like tapped him on the forehead. He laid out. It looked like he got knocked out. They were gasping. They asked if he was okay. It's bullshit. It's just a lie.
You just got to slap his neck and put his feet up.
Yeah, that's what I crossed his legs, man. So we after that, though, I told them the truth. After the hour was over, I go, hey, I know a lot of you guys. They thought we were filming, by the way, for a demo video for future self-defense seminars. So they thought it was going to be a promo video.
Okay.
Then after the hour was over, I was like, hey, just so you guys know, that's not exactly what we're doing. What I just taught you guys for the last hour was just bullshit. And they argued with me. They were like, no, it works. I was like, no, it doesn't. I was like, it works because I told you it does, like the wrist lock thing. I was like, just pull your hand away. Just pull your hand away. And as I go to do it, she put like this 100-pound woman was able to pull her hand out every time. And you could see on camera, I'm white knuckling my hands. I'm holding her hard.
Right.
And she's pulling it away every time. Or the sweep was the funniest one, because the sweep doesn't work at all.
Yeah.
So I thought people would call me on it. They all fell down repeatedly. The guy was like, no, man, I fell. I was like, all right, let's try it again. Now just put your foot down.
Push harder. Yeah,
I was like, the only reason that this worked is because I gave you parameters for it to work. Like in real life, they're going to fight you back. They're going to not let that happen to them.
Yeah.
And so I gave them an hour-long seminar of legit technique. I taught them rear naked choke, taught them a front kick, high covers, body
Real
lock.
stuff, yeah.
And they were sweating their ass off in that second hour. I made
bet.
them spar a little bit, like so they can get the feel. And they were so grateful that I did that. And it was cool. It was just a cool experiment.
That seems like I was going to say that the real stuff versus fake, they could probably tell, oh, you got to put some work into this jazz before what's practical, what's real and practical feels very different than I would imagine Hollywood thing.
We even covered misconceptions, right? Like size doesn't matter. Bullshit.
Yeah.
Would you rather get hit by a bike or a bicycle?
Yeah.
Would you rather get hit by a bus or a motorcycle? Like,
yeah.
It's going to suck either way, but if I had to put money on, I'd probably rather be hit by the motorcycle than the bus.
Yeah, I mean, and we hear that a lot in jiu-jitsu, right? Like the size doesn't matter. I'm like, it does. Like I know people that are better strictly at jiu-jitsu than me, but if I went like full bore, like you're not going to armbar me. Like it's not going to happen, right? And I'm not taking anything away from it. And certainly there are 100% are people way smaller than me that can choke the crap out of me that do it. But to your point, if a college football player comes in and I'm like, a 2.5-year blue belt, like that's going to be a problem, right? This 240-pound top tier athletic person. And I've rolled with some big folks too. And I'm like 205, but to your point, it's like that makes a huge difference and it's going to hurt. And if they decide to actually like punch me in the face, like I'm done. Like it's tough,
It's just not the only thing that matters.
Yeah.
Right. Size does matter, but there are other factors, right? Dan Inosanto calls them attributes. But it's just not the only thing that matters. But anybody who says size doesn't matter, watch any combat sport ever and ask yourself, why do they have weight classes if size doesn't matter?
Yeah.
It does matter. And,
there's a reason Mighty Mouse didn't fight Francis Ngannou. A big reason. Like, they didn't want to see somebody die in the ring.
Or the old school, like put the keys in your hand like Wolverine claws. It's like, okay, well, what happens when that doesn't puncture this person's skin and it cuts your hand instead? Now the hand that you need to use your keys to get into your car or your house is messed up because you just lacerated the hell out of it. Like weird concepts of the things that have never really been proven by people who have never tested what they do is astonishing to me. And there's a lot of it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I think that helping those folks more focus on the mindset of like, pay attention to where you are, trying to avoid those things as opposed to here's this thing, the foot stomp, the whatever, along with the keys, they're going to do this and then be like, okay, now we're going to set you up to do this with someone that's not going to let you do it. Right. And see how good. And like Rogan talked about it too. He's like, oh, you're going to bite me. Well, that's cool. What if I bite you back? And I know how to choke the shit out of you. Like it's it. And I think that's the biggest benefit. It sounds like not biggest, but one of the great ones from that documentary where you show them the bullshit and then you show them the real stuff of folks seeing like there's a difference and there's a reason things are in movies and that doesn't mean some of the stuff's legit. Like Sean Patrick Flannery, for instance, he's a super legit high level guy. And so, yes, he does movies, but he knows how to do that stuff for real. Like it's not that I don't like a good, John Wick movie and also another guy that trained, but you're not going to jump out because you watch John Wick and be able to do that or watch some of those, here's the women's self-defense things. And it's these real light hits and taps and chops and things. And you're like, it just, the average person that really trains gets hit like that, like hundreds of times. And
I have a story for one of those. I have a really interesting story. So like back when I first started McDojoLife, it was the first couple of years in, there was like this popular video that was going around that was put out by a company called Marie Claire. Big company, right?
Yeah.
And so they put out a women's self-defense video. And when you watched it, you were like, this is all the most ridiculous stuff I've ever seen. It's so ridiculous and outlandish. Yeah. So I reached out and found out who did that. And when I spoke with her about it, because when it came out, like I posted it, a whole bunch of people started tagging her because they knew her. And then, of course, like she got backlash. And she was going to put out an apology letter that she never put out. And she was going to tell the public the truth, which was she was a fitness model.
Yeah.
And she got hired by them to put out a self-defense video, even though she knew nothing about self-defense. And she just made all of that up and admitted that she just made it up. And it went on this massive platform that had millions and millions of views to the women who were looking at that. And you can just go through the comment sections of people saying, I'm going to practice this. This is something I'm going to work on. And it was bonkers. It was bonkers. It's just wild to think that people could just make that stuff up. Or Gabrielle Rubin. which was one that was hired by Tech Insider. And her stuff, like she talked about in one of her videos, where if someone has mounted you, just wiggle your hips and your hip will hit them in the groin. Like if anyone ever has done jujitsu and you've ever mounted someone, I've been doing this for 26 years and I have never had someone move in a way where their hip hit me in the groin while I was mounted.
Right.
Ever. Because when you're mounted, you're not sitting on their hips.
Right.
like,
right.
like what are you talking about? Like, so she's just making it up and she's saying it with such arrogance and she's saying it like, I know. She has no idea what she's talking about.
Yeah,
and these
dangerous.
self-defense gurus always kill me the most when they start talking, in fact, about sparring and sport martial arts being bad. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
That's like saying, in order for me to get good at baseball, I should never actually play a game of baseball.
Right.
Like, oh, well, just go to the batting cage. It's all you need. Like, oh, playing a game of baseball, that's just the game. You mean the game I'm actually practicing to get good at?
Right.
Because fighting people in the street does have rules. People think that it doesn't. That's a big misconception. They're called laws.
Right.
Yeah, there are rules in a street fight. If I kill you, I go to jail.
For sure.
There are rules. So I don't know. People just have these weird misconceptions and they look at these self-defense gurus like they know everything, and they don't. They're just talking out of their ass, and they never have to prove their skill because they look down at sport martial arts because they think, oh, that'll never work in the street. Try it. Go fight that guy.
Right. Just because he's fighting for points right now doesn't mean he wouldn't fight to snap you in half if you really went after him. I wonder if that's what's in people's mind, is because the word sport is latched onto the front of that. They think, oh, it's just for fun, or it's this or that. You're like, cool. But I mean, and for really I would imagine any discipline, I'm just more familiar with competition, like in jiu-jitsu, and not even a lot of them, but it ramps it up a notch, right? When you go there to win your little piece of metal, but it's against a stranger and you're both going 100%, it's very different than rolling with my buddy in the gym, right? And yeah, we're going real hard, but it's just very different. It's closer to a real thing, and that's sport for points. But then when you get to these high level folks that are crazy going after it, right, working really hard, and just super hard rolling. I mean, if you throw anybody in there, that's not trained like that, it'd be a meat grinder. And I think folks are so latched on to that word sport, jujitsu or sport, taekwondo or sport, whatever. Well, yeah, but they're still fast and kick you in the face, right? And there's, can still take you that. And so that's a great, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's one thing I don't get, even within the jiu-jitsu community, right? It's like, oh, well, that's sport. And you're like, yeah, but it works, right? It's against other people that know what they're doing also. It's not like they're doing it against a brand new person they just bring out there and then they win gold.
The rules of jiu-jitsu are still the same.
Yeah,
like, okay,
sure.
I need to take you down. I need to pass your guard. I need to get to a dominant position and establish and hold that position. Then I can submit you.
Yeah.
In a real fight, if that's your skill set, I need to get to a dominant position.
Right.
I need to secure that position and I need to submit you. Yeah. That doesn't change whether it's sport or real life. The only difference is now you've opened up new toolboxes for me. You're going, okay, I can also add these other things. Whereas self-defense gurus always go, I have these things. I don't have any of these other skills, but I can bite you, pinch you, eye gouge you, and hit you in the groin. You don't need to go to class to learn how to do those things.
Right.
You don't need to, are you guys actually practicing biting each other all the time in class? No, you're not. Right. Are you poking each other in the eye for real? No, you're not. Are you grabbing each other's hair all the time? No, you're not. Are you fish hooking each other all the time? No, you're not. Because none of those things actually require practice. You don't need to practice biting. I practice biting all the time when I chew my food.
Right. So you've done it millions of times probably. So you're well versed in the biting arts, in the fighting arts. So we talked about your documentary, other good combos. There's some more future for you and martial arts that we touched on, if you want to get into it, about bringing martial artists together, multiple martial artists, multiple disciplines, kind of akin to the computer electronics show, or if you I like comic books, the what is that annual big one they do? Comic-Con, right? Something like that. Yeah. But for martial arts, what are your thoughts on that? And what is your kind of vision or even actions you're already taking towards something like that?
Yeah. So ever since I was a kid, there's been this thing, which is supposed to be our industry's biggest event, which is called the Martial Arts Super Show. And the Super Show was put on by Century Martial Arts, more specifically Maya, the Martial Arts Industry Association, which is more geared towards business. And ever since I was a kid, people I highly respected would go and they would do seminars, or they would teach there, or they would give panels and conversations. And I noticed it was all geared towards business owners. It wasn't geared towards fans. It wasn't geared towards students. It wasn't geared towards assistant instructors. It was geared towards people who own schools, who needed business information to make their martial arts school better. And because of that, it was just really bland. It's just bland. It could be like, they even had great instructors there. I mean, Chris Cyborg taught a seminar there last time. Leota Machida taught a seminar there. Over the years, people like Bill Wallace have taught seminars there. And even in terms of business, you have guys like Bill Clark and some of the figureheads of Maya. And so they had great seminars there, but they really kind of shut out 75% of their audience by just saying only business owners. And I thought this could be so much better. And over the years, I just never thought about putting anything together on my own, because they still existed. That's it. They were still doing their thing. So why would I want to compete against somebody who's a powerhouse like them?
Yeah.
And then randomly this last year, they canceled it. Out of nowhere, they were just like, yeah, we're not doing the Martial Arts Super Show. And they rebranded it, and now they call it MayaCon. And it's now being held at the U.S. Open Sport Karate Tournament in Orlando. So now they're piggybacking off of that event. So it's becoming a much smaller convention, a little more tight-knit, but also still just geared towards the business side of things. And so when that happened, I was like, oh man, there's a huge hole here that needs to be filled. So I got together with Matt from Epic Roll, who's the guy who makes apparel for me, but he makes apparel for everybody, man. And they're a powerhouse. They're going to be the biggest apparel company in the martial arts space, I promise you. Awesome. And especially now that they just merged with Zoltan for Five Finger Death Punch, they're going to be massive.
Wow.
And they're already huge. And so I got with him and I was like, I have this idea. Why don't we do a Comic-Con style convention where we let everyone in, we drop the ticket price, and we put in people in a different structure rather than doing it this old way that wasn't financially viable? What if we brought in martial arts influencers, which never got brought into Maya, by the way? What about these major martial arts influencers?
More companies than influencers?
Yeah, say that again.
Before it was more the big companies, not the individuals like you and other like influencers, you mean?
Yeah. Like, why not use them? Why not get guys like Icy Mike or Ramsey Dewey or Rokas or, like anybody who's really doing it out there for the industry on social media? Why not bring people in like that and have them do signings? You can meet your influencer. You could take a seminar with them. Why wouldn't you do that? Yeah. Why not do a panel with like the guys from Cobra Kai and have them talk about
that'd be awesome. Yeah.
Why not do why not talk with Sean Patrick Flannery about his movies that he's done? Why not have a place where when a new martial art, like let's say hypothetically, the new John Wick was coming out, there was no place in our industry to be like, we're going to premiere a trailer here. We could do that. Why wouldn't we
that
do
would sell out in seconds, man.
Exactly. Why wouldn't we do that? And so Comic-Con's been doing that for years. When the new Marvel movie comes out, where do you think premiere? They premiere that trailer right there in Comic-Con, and people get that first sneak peek of something. Yeah. What about companies like Hayabusa did these amazing sets of gloves that all represented all the Marvel characters, right? Wow. Yeah. How awesome is that? They didn't have a platform to like launch and say, hey, we're going to do a panel about our brand new line of gloves. We're going to do it on the big stage at an event. They didn't do that. All these opportunities were just missed. How about guys who want to become stunt performers in martial arts? How do you do that? Why not have the 8711 guys come out and teach you? How about people who want to do mocap, which is the way that they set up a suit
capture something?
Yeah, exactly. So that way somebody could become a stunt performer for video games.
Oh yeah.
Why not bring out EA Sports and have a booth there where people can play video games against their favorite UFC fighter? So all of these things were just overlooked because they only focused on one part of our industry, which is the business side. We could do that too. We can also have Maya there. We could also have Kovar Systems there. And if someone wants to learn how to open their own martial arts studio, we can have a seminar for that.
Right.
We can do that. We can even do physical seminars of jiu-jitsu and judo and karate and taekwondo and eskrima, whatever you want. And we can do that in a 3-day event. and from start to finish, have something different going on, have tournaments right there on the competition, or right there on the convention hall floor.
Yeah.
That's sponsored by a mat company where every 2 hours a new tournament starts, an 8-man bracket. Oh, here's what combat jiu-jitsu looks like. Here's what sport karate looks like. Here's what sumo competition looks like, and have it right there where people can watch. And what about the fun stuff?
Yeah.
What about like the stuff that's nonsensical? The pillow fighting championship. I saw Pillow Fighting Championship set up a booth at a jiu-jitsu tournament, and it was packed because it was so fun. It didn't matter that you're not going to apply pillow fighting to street fights. Who gives a shit? It was fun.
Right.
And that's the whole point, is why not make it fun? So that's what we're trying to do with our event.
That's cool.
We've been working on it for a couple months now. We're going to be going to International Fight Week this year, me and my team. So we'll be there during International Fight Week. We're scouting locations. It'll be at an MGM hotel for sure.
Nice.
And then we're going to do it next year at that International Fight Week. So that gives us an entire year to prep, an entire year to advertise, an entire year to gather. And then we'll be able to put some pretty amazing people in that room. John Hackelman agreed to do it.
Oh, wow.
Who else? Bolton for Five Finger Death Punch agreed to do it. BMAC, who was a 10th Planet Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guy, he agreed to come in and teach a seminar.
That's cool.
We have a slew of martial artists at our disposal to come in, and we're going to make sure that it's just a fun event for everybody.
That makes me want to buy which you see a lot of videos of, those punching bag, measure how strong you can punch things, and put like 50 of them in there. I'd probably make like $50 million because everyone wants to hit them, all the videos. But yeah, man, that just sounds amazing. And probably like you, I picture like all the sponsorships you could have with all their merch everywhere, and for people would love it.
We even came up with a different concept for sponsorships. So like the Martial Arts Super Show, or like most conventions, what winds up happening is you wind up sponsoring the event, and then they'll take that money and they'll put it where they need to put it. We thought about it is, why wouldn't we break that down a little more simply? Because smaller companies who want to get their name out there, they can't afford a big package.
Right.
So, but you have guys out there who will show up for a hotel, for a flight, and for like $500.
Get some exposure.
Well, company can afford that. So why not individually sponsor these people? So like, let's say hypothetically you have like a guy like Gordon Ryan, on the other hand, he's not cheap.
Yeah.
So a bigger company can afford them. So why not sponsor the individual events? Sponsor this panel, sponsor this seminar, sponsor this person. They're available. And then now every time an ad goes out that's from them, it's sponsored by that company, which gives them way more exposure than just putting their name in a little section of a book. I
was going to say that's way more actionable and better exposure than your standard tiers of sponsorship. And it's on one giant banner. And of course, the big money has giant logos, and your logo's like way down at the bottom, or just the name of it or something. That's great. And so, yeah, it's like the whatever booth or this competition sponsored by, or make sure that seems like such a great opportunity to get people to grow.
Yeah. And, if you're a small company, you want to get your name out there. Like, we make a banner super cheap for us.
Yeah.
Right. You put that banner inside that seminar, and every picture and every photo has your logo in it.
Yeah.
Like, you want to take a picture with so-and-so. Well, since you're the main sponsor of so-and-so, you're not the main sponsor of the event. So the event logo will be, the main sponsor, the little ones, but yours will be the big one,
cool.
Like, even if you only paid $600,
right.
Like, okay, well, look, you made that particular event happen. So you are the main sponsor of Icy Mike, who will come in and teach, right? You're that guy.
Yeah.
So why not get that representation of your company, even if you're small? And I mean, I think it just opens up this windows of opportunity to make something that doesn't exist in our industry that damn sure should.
Yeah, for sure. I agree, man. Thanks so much. I mean, and during this whole time, especially the last probably 15, 20 minutes, just thinking about again, how you got started from one friend making one difference, getting you to get into martial arts, and then you putting the work in, on yourself, and, changing how you do, and then getting into McDojoLife, and now influencing the world already. Really look forward to the documentary, and really seeing people's reactions and the insight that you get when that comes out. And again, this show, I'll definitely be excited to to get a ticket, head out and check it out. And I thank you for giving me the opportunity, man, to talk to you and really learn. Had a great, I really appreciated this conversation. It was fun just to talk to you, let alone, hear about McDojoLife and all the stuff that you're doing. Is there kind of one message that you like to leave folks with, as far as the martial arts? So if someone's listening to this and they've heard a lot of what we talked about already, but if they're thinking about, I think I do want to try something that can kind of help them pick, would you direct them a certain way or just have them kind of just get out there, or what do you usually leave folks with?
Well, I get asked the question all the time, what's the best martial art to get into?
Yeah.
Like it happens all the time, which is an interesting question. And the answer is the one that makes you happy. Go do the one that makes you happy.
Yeah.
Chances are good, unless you're a complete asshole, you're probably not getting into fist fights every day of your life.
Right.
Chances are good, unless you're a fighter, you're probably not going to have to get ready for a fight. So what else are you doing this for? Find a tangible goal, set your sights on it, and use martial arts as that platform and do the one that's making you happy. I could sit there and tell people, go do jujitsu. What happens if your coach is a dick and you don't want to go? Well, in your mind, that is jujitsu. That is your jujitsu experience. You will not practice it and you will not show up, so you will not be effective at it. So that means you won't be good at using it to defend yourself. But let's say you go to karate instead and you wind up going and you're practicing and you're working hard, you're going to be 10 times more effective at that or 100 times more effective at that than that art you don't practice at all. So the idea is do the thing that makes you happy. And as long as your instructor isn't lying to you, and as long as you're getting benefit out of that program, that's the best martial art for you.
That's a great point. Good way to end it. McDojoLife, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, check it out.
Reddit, all them.
Reddit, yeah, on there. Any other McDojoLife.com? Do you have a .com? Do you usually work
just signed
socials?
a deal? Just signed a deal yesterday. Signed a deal with Zen Planner. The Zen Planner is one of those like point of sale systems for martial arts schools.
Yep.
And they are building my website.
Oh, cool.
So you're gonna have like this amazing state of the art website with all the bells and whistles to show off what Zen Planner can do. And awesome. On that website, it'll give me an opportunity, because I don't like affiliate marketing, right? I think it's ridiculous. Okay, so you get this commercial space for free unless I sell something. Like that's not how any commercial works. But it'll give me a platform where, like right now, all my sponsors, it's done through individual posts. Well, on the website, if you want gear, stop paying full price, get a discount. If you want like a point of sale system for your martial arts school, get a discount. If you want supplements, get a discount. If you want gear, get a discount. Like all that stuff will be available right there on the website.
Nice.
If you want to research someone's name, like, oh, is so-and-so been on McDojoLife? You can type it into the search bar and it'll pop up if I've ever done an article or a story about them.
Oh, that's great.
It will kind of automatically become an Angie's List for martial arts schools and slowly but surely become this beautiful list of people to avoid. Like
that's
if you type in someone's name, that will push them to the top, and people will know for a fact, hey, so-and-so was brought up on rape charges 10 years ago. Do you really want to train with them? So it's going to give me like a real big tool in the industry to be able to fight and combat these frauds more.
That's awesome. So is that coming out in the next couple of months or so?
Yeah, like we signed the deal yesterday.
Oh, wow.
So we went and did all the lawyer stuff. So we signed the deal yesterday, and now that we signed the deal, now it's time to move forward and kind of like start nitpicking, like what do I want and all that. So that's going to take time to develop what it's going to look like, but it'll probably be a couple months. But once it does come out, you'll know. Because once you start typing in pretty much anything that goes into martial arts on Google, my website's going to be popping up. So
top of the list.
Yeah.
That's great. That's awesome. Yeah, so that'll be a great resource. Operation Smile you have on your link tree, I think on Instagram already, for smile and cleft condition. So everybody consider giving to that. Great work they're doing all around the world, right? That's a global kind of thing. It's an
incredible organization. They really do. And you know, in the United States, the Shriners also do similar work, but it's only in the United States.
Oh, gotcha.
Operation Smile is global, and they go to places where they are so impoverished that they can't even afford food. So getting a major surgery like that is not something that they can afford. Well, Operation Smile, I think for every like $200 or something like that, they're able to do one surgery. That's that changes a kid's life, you know? So that's a huge thing for me as someone who was born with one.
Yeah, No doubt. We've changed a lot of lives, man. Thanks for taking some time out of your life for this show, for the KEV Talks podcast. Listeners, check out McDojoLife on all the platforms I talked about. And Operation Smile, you can look them up direct or go through Rob's Linktree. Rob, thanks again. It's great to meet you. Look forward to being in touch and just all the great things you have going on, man.
Thank you for the support, man. It means everything.
Thank you all for sticking with this episode. Really good conversation and perspectives from Rob, who's been in the martial arts game for quite some time. I hope you all enjoyed it as much as I did. Again, please check out the KEVTalksPod.com website for more information and the write-up for this show. And be sure to follow Rob at McDojoLife on Instagram, Twitter, everywhere you can find him. He's got great videos on YouTube that he posts, some that are not so great. They're sad, right, about folks abusing their power, their mind control kind of other folks. But I hope this provided some perspective. And remember, one person, just like Rob said, one person changed his whole life, and now he's changing thousands or millions of other lives. You can do that too. Thank you for being here. Remember, if you're practicing a martial art, you're in a stressful situation. Breathe, frame, give yourself some space, and keep showing up. Survive. Godspeed, y'all.